Hey there, I am back with another deck review, and today we're going to be looking at Poison from Thirdway Industries. This 3-deck series was launched on Kickstarter and designed, of course, by Giovanni Moroni. Giovanni's my favorite designer out there, in large part because of the stories and the lore that he puts into his decks. There's always so much depth to the themes, and Poison is, of course, no exception. So very excited to get these in from the campaign and excited to share them with you guys here. 3 different versions of the deck. You have the standard Aspis deck over here on the left, printed by USPCC, and then you have the Belladonna deck printed by Legends, and the Kingslayer deck, also printed by USPCC, but given an ornate tuck and gilded cards inside. So we'll look at all 3 of them, but let's start off with the Aspis deck and talk a little bit about the theme of the deck overall. So this is a vintage Poison theme, and it tells the story of John B. Trayer. John was, in the American Old West, a snake oil salesman with his father. The two of them traveled around the country selling their wares to people in small towns everywhere. But unlike most snake oil salesmen who were really just selling miracle cures that didn't do anything, John and his father had the secrets of alchemy and the ability to create potions that actually delivered on what they said they could do. They could create potions that would harm, potions that would heal, but whatever it was, they had those secrets to them. And as the world modernized going into the 1900s and the 1920s, John decided to settle down and become a druggist, basically a pharmacist instead. And so this deck is built around his time as a druggist in the 1920s. And I'll give one extra little tidbit, one little fun tidbit. John's father, when talking about him, referred to his pride in him not just as the last great alchemist, but also as a great salesman. Now, that's an important word, and I think one that has an interesting tie to some of the other decks, thinking of John B. Trayer as a great salesman. So I'll leave that to the imagination. You guys can imagine where that maybe ties into some other Thirdway decks. But let's get into Aspis. So the name Aspis is Italian for asp, a poisonous snake. It was actually the snake that was believed to have been the one that was responsible for the death of Cleopatra. And so a fitting name for the deck overall. And the design of the tuck is meant to mimic a bottle of poison. So it's done on a regular glossy finish, just that standard USPCC tuck case. This is the standard version of the deck after all, but it has some nice green and gold metallic inks and a nice shine to it overall. The whole thing designed to look like a metal inlaid glass bottle. So you can see the panels of glass here in the green, and the gold is that ornate twisting metal design all the way through. Really cool look to it. You can even see some of the bubbles in the middle here, almost like you can see the poison bubbling up inside the bottle. Poison written across the front, and just a really nice, simple but clean kind of Art Deco style to it overall, with the skull and crossbones finishing it out there at the bottom. That same pattern continues up the sides of the tuck. The bottom just has your ad copy for Thirdway Industries and USPCC, who printed this version of the deck. Top has more of that same pattern with the snake's head there in the middle, and the back has the back design of the cards that we'll look more closely at in a second. Continuing that theme or that pattern on the inner flap, and then you get these little triangle symbols on these smaller inner flaps. Nothing printed on the interior of the tuck. So I definitely like the other more ornate embossed tucks that we're gonna look at in a second, but for a standard tuck, I think this one really does look quite nice. All right, but now into the cards, and we'll start with the back design, and here it is. So very much in keeping with what we saw in the tuck case, has the mixture of greens and golds. These are all metallic inks, so they have a nice shine to them overall. And again, mimicking the feel of looking at a panel of a vial of poison, those ornate gold metallic lines, and then the panels of carved green glass all the way around. And you can still see some of those bubbles inside. I love the little border points here that just kind of give a little extra shape to it overall. It's just a really nicely done back design, and then finishes out with that medium poker border around the edge. So a little bit hard to see here, but this isn't a true white on the poker border. This is kind of a super pale green. Not quite as dark as like Omnia Perduta, if you remember that deck, but does have that kind of pale green that gives it a little bit of a darker, more mysterious vibe that I like. All right, now turning to the cards, and you get 4 jokers or 4 extra cards, and these all function as sort of ad cards or ad posters for John B. Trayer's business, talking about some of the different poisons that he makes. All beautifully done. They all definitely have that 1920s style to them, and very cool little mini stories told on each one. So the first one is for delightful poison, at least the taste is good. These are sort of sweet tasting poisons that can be snuck into a drink or a wine of some sort. And here up the top, you can see Jack himself drinking one of those poisons in a glass here with that metallic green liquid. At the bottom, you get John's address. If you want to go avail yourself of his service, you can go see John B. Trayer, druggist, on Belladonna Street in Eden Springs. Remember, Belladonna is the name of the second version of the deck that we'll look at in a bit. So very cool look. Again, heavy use of those metallic inks to help the design glow overall. And I love this kind of 3/4 one-way design at the top. Very, very nice. Second one, a really intriguing one. This is mesmerizing poison, poisons that'll help you forget all of the ills in your life. And so you have this temptress here holding up and kind of offering you a bottle of that poison. And you get lots of greens on this one. I love the green hair in particular. Third one is Kingslayer poison. So poisons have historically been used from time to time to kill rulers of the land, whether it's snuck into a food or a drink, or used on a poison tipped weapon like the arrow you see hurtling its way towards the king's head. You can see the drips of poison on the end there. So Kingslayer poison, thirst for freedom. And then finally, we have green aspis poison. Snakes, venomous snakes, are often used to produce poisons. And so here we can see the asp coiled around a column, little drips of venom at the bottom, and then a woman there on the left. This is definitely my favorite of the court cards. Definitely has kind of a more modernized Cleopatra vibe to it to me, with the woman in the asp. So very, very cool. Love the reds and the pinks that are used on this one as well. So there's your 4 jokers. Really like those kind of jokers / ad cards. All right, Ace of Spades, that power ace, features John's address there at the top again, and then has that large spade pip with a mixture of green and gold metallic inks. It's adorned with the gold skull and the head of the asp there, and again kind of gives you a view into an ornate bottle of poison with the green liquid inside. You get little drips of poison all over the place, and then the custom pip and index there in the corner done in a super dark green. And again, you can kind of see that pale green background to the cards themselves. So cool Ace of Spades. The other 3 aces all made to look a little bit like vials of poison as well, but of course, given the feel or the look of the classic pips, so you have the diamonds, clubs, and hearts. The red cards are replaced with a red liquid inside, and then those black cards have the green liquid. So very nice on those. The number cards are all custom as well. They have pretty ordinary pips, I guess I would say. They're just solid colored pips done in a really dark green. They do have a little bit of a custom shape, but what makes the number card special, of course, is going to be that gold border and then the metallic green concentric circles in there, kind of a hypnotic pattern overall. So it gives a nice extra little elegant feel to the number cards that sort of elevates them over your regular standards. Pip placement is pretty standard within that frame, but the whole thing, just a really nice look to it overall, and again, kind of keeping with that Art Deco vibe. So the black cards are a super dark green. The red cards are kind of a pinkish red, I would call it. So a little bit more pink, much lighter color than maybe what you're used to with like a bicycle deck. And then you get those slightly custom pips in a pretty common arrangement there. And then into the hearts. So nice job on the pips, and then we get to the courts. Now sometimes with Giovanni's courts, you'll get each individual court has its own name and backstory. These are courts that are based off of Giovanni's standard courts. So you may have seen the standard court designs on like Egoism and decks like that. These are kind of built around those, but obviously modified to fit in with the theme. You get the greens and the gold color on their clothing, and you'll see little drops of poison, little droplets kind of fitting in with the theme overall. Very nice look to them. I like his standard courts. I'm usually a fan of the more custom courts, but as standard courts go, I think these are really nice and do work pretty well. Red cards, more of the same, but the greens now replaced with reds and pinks. The other thing I like on these, you get a lot of different expressions just with the use of eyebrows or like a little look of the eyes, a little upturned lip or something like that. So you get definitely different emotions that are portrayed through the characters as you go through. And then finishes out with your classic suicidal king, complete with a little drip of blood coming from the sword. So very cool deck overall. And this is just one version of the deck. So this one's printed by USBCC. You can guess how it handles. It handles really well. Very smooth handling. But like I said, if you felt other bicycle decks, you know what their crush stock's going to feel like. Just very good overall. Great and solid. All right, so that is one of the three versions. Let's move that one aside and take a look next at Belladonna. Now, Belladonna, Italian for beautiful woman, and Belladonna is actually the name of a deadly nightshade. It's a flower that can be used to produce a poison, very potent poison. And in fact, that poison was the one that Shakespeare wrote into Romeo and Juliet as the poison that Juliet used to kill herself. And so that's where the name of the deck comes from. This deck is printed by Legends, and it's done in a much more ornate tuck case. This one features embossing and some beautiful holographic foils. You can see the shine of those foils in the middle, not just silver, but that holographic glow. Gives it a really nice feel and texture and look to it overall. Matches great with the purples and the pinks. Just a really nice look to it. Same artwork as before, so no differences on that front, but that holographic foil just really takes it to the next level. This one also adds in a custom seal, that gold foiled seal with the skull and crossbones, and these are numbered, so this is a deck that's limited to 1,500 copies. Same patterning there on the inside, although these, remember the triangles on the first one, these are replaced with a little flower. So I'm supposing that's the Belladonna flower. But what really sets this one apart, yes, the tuck case is nice, but the best part has got to be the cards themselves, starting with the back design. The back design is done in full flood foiling. This is a technique that, as far as I know, only Legends and Expert Playing Card Company do, which is basically they foil the entire back design and then print the inks on top. So the whole thing is given a mylar coating of that holographic foil, and then the pinks and the reds that you see are just printed on top. So the whole card has a shine to them, but where they let that holographic glow through, it just looks absolutely brilliant. So the borders of the deck all shiny and holographic, but then that nice pattern inside. This is a really, really nice deck, and use this one in fans and just absolutely shimmers. One of the most brilliant shiny decks that I've ever seen. Really big fan of this one. So great look on those. And then the faces of the cards now, instead of that pale green, are done in kind of a pale pink. I say pale, this is actually kind of a dark color. I don't know how well it's showing up on camera, but this is a little darker than I expected it to be, but still has a nice and very unique look to it overall. Now, otherwise, the cards are mostly the same other than the color, but there are two different poison posters that are introduced on this one. So remember, Legends cards only have 2 extra cards. So instead of 4 that we saw in the previous one, this one only has 2, and it introduces us to Belladonna poison for the dangerous beauty. So a temptress there with the poison in her hand. And then finally, fragrant poison. All you need is a flower. So sweet smelling poisons. You can see the colors here are done a little bit different. That gold kind of takes on a little bit more of a greenish look, and then introduces some blue metallics as well. As you go through the rest of the deck, same artwork, but given a very different feel with those pinks, and the colors have been swapped out as well. So a lot more blues and golds on the black cards, and then the red cards on their courts feature again those reds and pinks and that kind of greenish gold. So another nice deck. This has got to be my favorite of the 3. I think this one's really well done, and those holographic foils just absolute standout. And then the final version of the deck is the Kingslayer Deck. So this is the most limited of the 3 decks, only 888 of these printed. And this one features a tuck case that's made by Gambler's Warehouse. They always do a great job with their embossing and foiling. This one's really nicely done. Has a deep, deep embossing. So this one's deeper embossing than the Belladonna deck, and 2 different colors of foil. It's a little bit hard to see here, but there's 2 different shades of green, kind of a darker, brighter green there in the middle, and then a little bit, I guess this would be like the darker green and then a brighter green in the center there. So 2 different colors, and then that greenish, like I guess it's like a dark, it's more like a dark blue tuck case that it's set against. Really nice look to it overall, and this design just feels made for embossing. Absolutely showcases embossing so well. It does have that gold tuck seal, so same as before. Same tuck steel style that was used on the Belladonna deck. And interior design, more the same. New icon here now with the drips of poison. And then this one also features interior foil as well. So you get that circular pattern. So you have the skull and crossbones there, and a little bit hard to see in here, but there's actually a character, a king that's printed there on the interior. So maybe one of the kings that was killed by the Kingslayer poison. So very cool overall, a great tuck case. Probably my favorite of the 3 tuck cases. But quick look at the cards. So on face, looks like these are the same cards as the Aspis deck, and they are, but these are given a gilding as well, some emerald green gilding. It's a really interesting color. Depending on the light you hit these in, like these kind of look like a bluish green or a really dark green, but you get these in a more direct light, they can look super bright green. It's almost a color changing effect. It's hard to describe until you get it in hand, but a really bright look, and it's a great fit with the back design of the card. So great choice in the gilding coloring. Handling on these obviously is going to be a little bit rougher with that gilding, but still not bad overall. They still handle pretty smoothly considering it's a gilded deck. So that is the 3 different versions of Poison. Gotta say, I think for me, the Belladonna has my favorite cards, but the Kingslayer is probably my favorite of the 3 tucks. But either way, don't think you can go wrong with this one, especially if you like slightly more standard, maybe a little bit more functional decks. I think Poison's going to fit that vibe of still being custom, still having great artwork, but being a little bit closer to standard if you want to use it for gameplay. So another great deck from Giovanni Moroni. I'm probably a little bit biased at this point. I love all of his decks, but for me, Poison is going to be one of those standout decks. I think he did a phenomenal job on it. So very excited to get this one. Thanks for another great deck. Hope you guys enjoyed it too. And for now, make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews, more unboxings. Let me know what else you want to see, and I'll see you for the next one.